Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the hearing to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this morning. Introducing the panel members is Carrie Linklater to my left, and to her left is Mr. Robert Upton. Representing the city of Winnipeg is Jonathan Dulinski and Brittany Sanducci. Our recording secretary is Belen Rojo. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the accepted role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicants or the assessor make at the hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that assessments or comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of the city and the administration also. We make a decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order which will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the municipal board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification or to Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application for exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respects to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with Chief Applicant. Following the swearing in, we'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that each applicant may have, and there will be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once the evidence about the application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this morning. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll ask our secretary to swear in the assessor and the applicant.
Please state your full name. And you swear to be able to represent the true collection of Do you swear in your family?
I'll swear.
Please state your full name.
Jonathan Dulinski.
And you swear to be able to represent the true collection and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And you swear to be able to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, we'll begin with the first order of business, which is 54 Watt Street. So I will just state for the record, there was a recommendation, I guess, Mr. Rack. Have you looked at the recommendation?
Yes, I have.
And are you in agreement?
No, I'm not.
Okay, we will proceed then. So the assessors will take us through this property and tell us how you've determined value. Thank you.
This is file number 18-246, roll number 14093020000. Address 54 Watt Street, this is roll year 2019, and reference date of April 1st, 2016. So the original assessed value was $461,000, and my recommendation was to reduce the 2019 assessed value to $370,000 based on $30 a square foot, and then the land area of 12,337 square feet. So if you could turn to page 2, I just have some aerial photos of the vehicle service garage. It's at the corner of Nairn and Watt. If you turn to page 3, there's just some more pictures, exterior photos of it. Page 4, I just have the last sale for the property was about 17 years ago for $168,000. And then I have my land valuation summary where I break down what it was prior to the wreck. It was the $37.37. At the bottom of the page, I have my land sale comparables. The property here is zoned C2, and the comparables are all zoned either C2 or there's one that's C3. The average sale price per square foot is $26.59, and the time adjusted sale price per square foot is $34.21. Most of them are older sales, nothing after 2014. The last two comparables are much larger land size. If you turn to page 5, I just have pictures of my land comparables. I have the 984 Main Street, which is the corner of Main and Pritchard, 304 St. Mary's Road, which is the corner of St. Mary's and Lyndale. Page 6, I have 1328 Plessis Road, which is Plessis and Coastal Regent, Transcona. Fourth comparable is 250 Marion Street, which is in St. Boniface, and it's at Marion, close to Traverse Avenue. So page 7, I just have the Municipal Assessment Act. Page 8, I just included the mailer which was filled out. On page 10, I have what they submitted, they pay for what the leased area is in their monthly rent, which it works out to about $48,000 a year. And I think that's all. That's my presentation. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Reck, questions of the assessor?
Yeah, I just have one question. You're using vacant land to compare it to the subject property which has a building on it. I see that there's no calculation for what it would cost to remove that building, so that you're comparing apples to apples. Is there any reason why?
We're just using this way to value it because that was the highest and best use to value it, the best way to value it. Unfortunately, with the large land size and then the small building, the income of it just didn't.
That's my question.
I thank you. Ms. Lickletter?
Ms. Santucci, did you have a chance to go out to this property and inspect it?
No, I haven't been to this property.
Any of the comparables?
No, I haven't. Actually, the only one I have been to is 304 St. Mary's because I added a CMBR to that property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Upton?
No questions right now, thank you.
Ms. Santucci, so you're valuing the subject property just for land only? Okay. And you don't have any recent land sales? The best you can do is 2013?
Unfortunately, this area, like where the property is, most of it to the left of the property is just residential housing. To the right is the bridge, and then again to the north is mostly houses too, and then the south is industrial St. Boniface. So I tried my best to find new comparables. Like 984 Main would be a similar, I guess, comparable for like location wise, whereas 304 would probably be a better location. But those are the only ones I thought that were comparable.
So your time adjustment, average-wise, $34.21.
Yeah.
Yet in your recommendation, you're going $30 a square foot.
Yeah, I lean more towards the 984 Main Street, just for that property.
And tell us about, I'm always interested to know about the time adjustments, okay? The time adjustment, it looks like it's between 30 or 40%. So how was that arrived at? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, so it's, there was paired sales analysis, so properties that sold twice, and we kind of just justified it from that. So we had a few like land sales where it was sold in 2012, and then it sold again in 2015, and we went off those.
All right, I thank you. Mr. Rack, your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at the first page of my brief, as the assessor said, it is a gas station. The problem with gas stations, when it comes to valuation, is that there's always a contamination issue with gas stations. You'll see the picture at the bottom. That's where the in-ground hoist used to be. When it comes to contamination, we don't know at the time. It's not on the contaminated list, but since it's never been tested, all gas stations, this was built, basically the whole building was built in '59, I think. I'm not aware of any kind of addition to 2007. But all the old gas stations, in-ground hoists, and this actually had pumps at one time. Until you test the property, you don't know what the degree of contamination is. If the contamination is such that it would have to be remediated, it would only have to be remediated if you rip down that building. So basically, highest and best use is what the current use is for the property. To test, if someone was to purchase the property thinking they're gonna tear it down, they would have to do a test. Would be something like Pinch Environmental would come in and drill boreholes to see whether or not the groundwater was contaminated or what the contamination of the soil is, but there would be contamination. It may be that the contamination is not severe enough that would warrant remedial work, but we don't know until that is tested. That kind of testing could cost you $10,000 to $15,000. So someone would have to do that even before they purchase the property to demolish the building, and then you would have to figure out the comparable properties, how much it would cost you to demolish that building and take it away. Otherwise, someone would just buy a vacant piece of land. There is egress problems with the property depending on which direction you're going to get in and out of the property. But at the present time, you'd have to take into consideration contamination. So I'm valuing the property today on the income approach, which would be the most logical. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see that's a comparison at 1585 Henderson Highway, pretty much the same years of subject property. It rents, the city actually owns that property. They're keeping the property for Chief Pegasus Trail expansion. That is a contaminated property. It is on the list. It does have groundwater contamination. That rents for $8.40 per square foot, which could be a little on the low side. The bottom you'll see in 2016, that property sold in Burnell. It used to be Meineke. You can see that property. It's on the back lane, just off Portage Avenue. There's a grocery store on Portage Avenue. So you can't see that property from Portage Avenue. And based on the sale price of that property, if you apply that to the area of the subject property would be worth about $237,000. So we turn to the next page, and basically using comparisons from assessor's brief on a couple of gas stations I had before. So basically these are all muffler shops, and you know that the Midas Muffler, Speedy Muffler, and Fountain Tires are superior buildings. They all have mezzanines in them, and you'll see the size range anywhere from 59,000 square feet down to 2296 square feet for the second one on Ferry Road. And the average of all those rents is around $12.60 per square foot. So I'm using basically with the location of the property, the type of building it is, and it's not similar to any of the Midas Mufflers or Speedy Muffler or Fountain Tire. It's an inferior building, and so I'm using basically $10.50 per square foot to value that building. I'm using the city parameters that were applied to other service stations in the city that I've had appeals on, and that'd be a vacancy of 4%, 7% for the management and other expenses, shortfall of $450, and a cap rate at 7%. So I'm using similar type, superior properties, service related, to apply to the subject property, and I get a valuation of $202,000. I think that would be the most logical way to value the property, since you're not going to demolish that building and spend the money to test the site. The site can be used for other purposes. If you just maintain the building, you could make it into a burger place or a retail, as long as you don't touch that building. By Manitoba laws, as soon as you test the soil, you have to take that information and submit it to the government to put it on their contaminated site, whatever the findings are. And I think a prudent buyer would just buy the property the way it is and use it as a service station or change the building into something else. But to tear down the building, you would have to do testing. Anytime you remove a building like that, you have to test. So today I'm just asking the board to reduce the value to $202,000 based on the income approach. That's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you. Questions of the applicant?
So for your comparison of 1585 Henderson Highway, do you have any information for that lease? Because there's no lease end date, it just says 1978 is the lease start, and that it's, I know they state it's owner occupied. Do you have any information on what that lease is with the city?
The lease is what's put down on that income expense mailer. I don't know why the city puts them down as the owner, because the city owns that property. But I'm not using that property as comparison.
Okay.
I'm using all the other.
Just the ones on the back page?
Yeah, I'm using all the ones up there. It was just to show that a building of that age, I would imagine it'd be property development that would set the rent for that. And that rent, I think, is a little low for that property.
Okay, and then for Burnell, when that property sold, it obviously didn't, if you've seen pictures, it didn't look like that, it was renovated. And then you chose to do based on the building size and the sale price, whereas if you were to use the sale price and the lot size, you would actually get a sale price per square foot of $49.30 a square foot.
For the lot size?
Yeah, that, the lot at Burnell is 16,207 square feet, so if you divided that by the actual sale price, you would get a much higher sale price per square foot. And then for your.
You said I would get, you said if I used the lot size, it'd be $40 a square foot.
For 18?
I mean, the building, if you're using the lot size, the sale price per square foot has gotta be lower.
Okay, I just divided the lot size by the sale price. So for your comparables for the property, do you know if any of these do have MES? Because I know 337 Ferry Road is just your average CMVSR, like vehicle service garage.
The maximum muffler, the minus muffler, the speedy muffler, I believe, in the Fountain Tire, when they build those, where the office is, there's usually a mezzanine on the top.
Okay, and then for your potential income, did you look to what the person is paying for at 50 for a watt? Because on the mailer they submit to us, and I checked previous years, so it didn't seem to be an error, but they're paying about $48,000 a year.
Yeah, I don't believe that's market rent.
Okay, so they're charging it, but it's not market rent.
Well, there's a lot going on there, because the owner's involved, and he's in that property too. I don't believe that would be a market rent. If you had to rent it out and it went vacant, I believe the comparables are, what you probably get. You wouldn't get what the comparables are, the superior buildings.
Okay, but he is charging the tenant $48,000 a year.
It appears so.
Okay, that's all my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linkletter?
I have no questions at the moment, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Upton?
Just a second here. You say this was a service station at one time. Was it a major oil company that owned this property?
I can't remember back in those days. Actually, a friend of mine knows the fellow who rented in the 80s. His name was Abe Pauls.
He was a lessee?
Yeah, back in the day. I mean, it could be BP, I have no idea back in those days.
Yeah. Were the tanks removed from the property?
Yes, they were.
And was the soil tested then when the
No,
tanks were
there's
removed?
been no testing of that property at all.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, did you appeal this property before?
No, this is the first time I've had this property. That's why it's being appealed this year.
Summation? Ms. Santucci? No? Mr. Rack?
No.
Final word? No?
No.
Okay, leave it with us. So we'll, thank you for coming this morning, and results very soon.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go on to 455 St. Mary's Road. Come on forward, we'll get you sworn in. Does that conclude your business, Ms. Santucci?
Yes, that was the one I had.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
We'll get you sworn in or affirmed, either one.
So he's writing the Bible or to affirm without it? Please state your full name, Mark Lee. And you swear the able to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Frolick, are you giving evidence?
I'm here for support, so I would like to be
Okay.
sworn in, please.
Okay.
No worries.
Please state your full name.
Maverick Frolic,
Can you start the events that present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and nothing but
the city.
So we will go to 455 and followed by 449 St. Mary's. So we'll first hear from Jonathan. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can take us through this property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, file number 18-677, roll number 0800008350. Address is 455 St. Mary's Road. Roll year 2019, reference date of April 1st, 2016. The assessed value is $229,000. And my recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $45.27 per square foot. All right, on page 2, have a couple pictures of subject property. It is at St. Mary's and Maury Ave. Page 3, cost valuation summary breakdown. You just have the land value there, it's $229,000. Subject sales history. The most recent, we have a sale from August 7th, 2002 of $142,240. Then on the bottom of page 3, breakdown of the land valuation. You can see there the size of the parcel is 5,058 square feet and works out to a net rate square foot value of $45.27. On page 4, I have our land sale comparables. There we have an average of the comparables at $48.41. And then at the bottom of this page, comparables map of where the comparables are located. If you flip to page 5, just pictures of the comparables. First comparable there is roll number 0800324500. Its closest intersection is St. Anne's Road and Worthington Avenue. Next comparable is 0800167000. It's at the corner of St. Anne's Road and Regal Ave. On page 6, I have 2 more comparables. Top one is 080050701000. It's at the corner of St. Mary's and Greenwood Ave. And my last comparable roll number is 0800765500. And it is near the intersection of St. Anne's Road and Humboldt. That's my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Questions of the assessor?
From the photos, just like to confirm that file number that's on page 6, first photo. Are you evaluating the land price only or land plus building?
That would just be land price only.
So that one is land price only. And same for the second photo? That's ending in 765500. Because it shows they have buildings on both of them.
Yes, that's land price only. It's just our system doesn't have every photo from every year.
So those 2 buildings have been since demolished. And my other question is that I see that you're using 1585 St. Mary's Road.
Yes.
So that one is very close to Cemetery Mall, and then it's nowhere near where our property is. However, number 65 St. Mary's Road, that property is very close, in close proximity to our location. where the land value is only $153,000, why wasn't that one being compared, why wasn't that one compared?
I felt this comparable number 3 was best suited for my subject property, and that's why I went with it.
Well, I'm just looking at 65 St. Mary's Road, the assessment value is $153,000. The land area is close to ours, which is 7,752, and their per square feet value is only 1974. Where on your comparison, yours have 5071. Like, I'm just considering why aren't some of the lower assessed value properties listed in your comparison?
Because we don't compare assessments, we compare actual sales values. So when we do valuation processes, assessments can be wrong, and when businesses don't change ownership, and,
That one was just recently bought and sold out.
was it post-reference?
Yes.
Okay, so it was after the reference date, April 1st, 2016?
That I don't have a way of checking.
Okay,
Yeah.
so unless it's post-reference, then we're not gonna use it. And so, and where's that comparable? I just wanna double check because you had mentioned it, so.
So
which-
96 St. Mary's Road?
Which one, 96?
96 St. Mary's
Is that in
Road.
your presentation?
That one's mine, yeah.
Okay, so we'll ask about it, I think, when, because it's hard for us to answer it when we can't see it with regards to what the sales value is per square foot.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then also, I would like to ask that, like, I see that a lot of your comparisons are in the South Glen Royal Wood, which is a new area, and then where the average property value are higher. Just wondering, was there no property that's closer to where our location is, where, like, and then within the general, property assessment values? Because Royal Wood it's a lot, like, higher in value, and then and then there's a lot of high rises in the proximity. So the land value will be different than something that's 5 kilometers away.
St. Anne's, the two of our comparables at St. Anne's and at 175 St. Anne's and 113 St. Anne's is actually very close to the subject property. Because that's at the corner of St. Anne's and St. Mary's. So,
The two that you have, one is really close to Cemetery Mall.
okay, that's
So-
number 3.
Yes, yes, and then the other one, I believe it's backing onto a river lot. Let me just double check. You know, just saying that I would agree with it a lot more if it's something that's closer to the area rather than something that's like
Okay.
10-minute drive.
So are you denying, so is it a 10-minute drive from comparable number 2 and comparable number 4 to the subject property? Because St. Anne's,
No, I'm asking for the one that's by Cemetery Zone number 3, and then
number 1 would be a lot farther away.
yeah.
And it's harder
So
to.
number 1 and number, yeah, so, like the one I see that you have, it's, sorry, this is. So the only one that I would see that's close would be the one that's close, no, I'm just wondering, like, why wasn't there anything closer related, cause it's a lot further, except for one that's by Superstore right there.
Yeah. Well, I think as a nutshell, it's hard to get good sales in vacant commercial and for vacant commercial areas. 2 of our comparables are super close to the subject property, right, at St. Anne's and St. Mary's. And the other ones are a bit further away, and I acknowledge that. But, you know, if we're looking at the overall market value for the subject property, we have it valued at $45. 113 is at $41.32, and number 2 is at $50. So it's actually right in between the 2 properties, and those are our most suitable comparables to the subject property.
And, okay, the other consideration is that, the properties that you have, they're in a residential central, so, where ours is, our property is right in between a manufacturing, plant and a mini muffler, which creates a lot of noise. Was that considered at all?
We mostly looked to the C2 zoning designation. We felt we matched that as best we could with our comparables. We did take into account the heavy traffic and noise and whatnot, in our comparables. So I do feel we took that into consideration.
Questions? No? Ms. Linklater?
Yes, Mr. Dolinsky, on your page 4, then, would you say, are you using number 1 as your best comparison?
No, I think the closest one would be either 175 or 113.
I think overall it's our closest one because of the size and price. It's not necessarily our closest, but yeah, it's our best comparable.
Did you have a chance to visit this property?
No, I did
This
not.
land? No? Any of the comparisons?
No.
No? Okay, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Upton?
Yes. When you got your sale price per square foot at the bottom there, of the two comparables, number 2 and 4 is the one you're relying on the most. Are those sale prices that occurred at the sale date or the updated sale price? Time adjusted,
These are date of sale prices.
their date of sale?
Yes.
Okay. So not adjusted for time then? Okay. You said, do they have curb cuts?
I do not know.
Does not look on the picture on the subject property, if you look on page 2, for 449, there's no curb cut there, it's like, it's in between the block.
Would you know there be any restriction to having curb cuts?
Well, I don't think it would be practical to put a curb cut in that location in the middle of the block.
It wouldn't be practical.
No, because,
Then how do you get access to the property?
well, it's located right on St. Mary's Road, so there's,
Oh, there's access from St. Mary.
Yeah.
The curb cuts there.
well, it's a street. So they wouldn't, when you say curb cut, what are you?
Access to the property so you can develop it commercially, you can get onto the property from each of these streets.
I don't think there's any limitations with regards to developing it commercially.
Okay, and getting the curb cuts accordingly. Okay.
Well, where would you put the curb cut then on a lot that's in the middle of a city block? I'm a bit confused.
Well, okay. All I'm saying is if you have a type of business on the property that requires traffic to drive into the property and get
Okay.
parking, et cetera, you have to have a cut in the curb.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be feasible on a lot like this because they wouldn't put well, I don't think because the size of the lot is not large enough to have a curb cut where you'd have a driveway because the frontage, not knowing the frontage, but I'm guessing the frontage is probably around 50 feet. And so I don't think they would put a curb cut in a situation like this.
So there would be a restriction then, like.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have anything else right now, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dolinsky, I guess on your page 2, you have a picture of the subject property, okay, and you have a red border around it, okay? So, obviously that's the subject property. It's C2 zoning,
Yes.
okay? And if you look at the picture below that, there's a construction machine right beside it. So, was the subject property have a building on it before? And how recent is this picture? I mean, was it vacant land or was there a building on it where they demolished something because it could be applicable to the next property?
Well, what we're guessing there is there's, as you can see, the next property on appeals, the
Yes.
subject property right beside it. So
Yeah.
obviously, both properties are sold for something to be built there moving forward. So.
Okay. And that was
yeah,
post-reference.
Post-reference, so my guess is it's gonna be used for future development. So
Okay.
whatever their intentions are as a
Okay.
homeowner to or as a property owner to build or develop this property, you know, there was an older building on there, and they felt that the highest and best use of those buildings that they purchased were to tear them down for future development. Because there have been a lot of developments taking place on St. Mary's Road, where people have torn down old buildings and built new buildings due to the favorable location of being so close to the downtown area.
So I see that on page 4, there's no time adjustment, which I like.
Which is not necessarily fair either, though.
But I guess which, in your opinion, is the closest to the subject property in your comparables, in your land sales? Would it be 4? Number 4?
4 is comparable, it's a little bit bigger.
So I'm just looking at the sale price per square foot. And if you look at 4 and you look at 1, it's $41 to $51. So somewhere in that vicinity, eh? So
Yeah,
you settle at 45, eh?
Yeah, part of it might be economies of scale of number 4.
Yeah.
Between those two, we like those two the best, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I have no further questions. The floor is yours, madam.
Just kind of a reference, this is my first time
That-
ever, so
You take
very
your,
nervous.
you take your time.
So I don't really know how the process actually works, but, so my comparison was between the property assessment value around property that's close to ours. So what I picked is, number 447 St. Mary's Road, so that one is the building right next to our lot, as well as the Minna Muffler, so that's 459 St. Mary's Road. So for example, so say for 447 St. Mary's Road, if I assume, so the building is 25,000 square feet, sorry, 2,500 square feet estimated. If we calculate based on $70 per square feet building value, then their land will only be $125,000. So which gives their dollar per square foot value at $18.53. And we're looking at Minna Muffler, which they have a better building built, and then it's higher. Well, like, I'm not doing the replacement value of $160 to $200 per square foot. I'm just doing this one there.
Are you, okay. It's a starting point to look at assessed values, okay? But you don't really know, it's as I stated beforehand, you shouldn't use comparisons of assessments, okay? Because they might be under appeal also. So, but it's a starting point, okay?
For residents like us, this is the only information that we can grab.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not-
So you can take us through a little bit more, but,
Okay.
you know, it's not gonna, you know, it's, like I say, it's a starting point to get you there.
Okay.
But really, what we're after are market sales. Sales of similar properties
Okay,
will give you the market value of your property,
okay.
okay? So you can
And then where
continue.
will one get that information?
You'd have to get a hold of probably one of the individuals sitting here, okay? And they would provide sales data for you,
Okay,
okay?
alright.
But they would also probably ask that they represent you too.
Right.
So, so that's basically what we're after, okay?
Okay, alright.
So, so these comparisons that you have here, like it's a starting point to say, am I correct or am I overassessed, or, you know, look at it that way. But the way you prove that is by going after market evidence, sales of similar property, you know, in and around the reference year. Okay. So if you want to continue, that's fine. You go right ahead.
Sure.
So you can state for the record what you think you know, the assessment should be,
Okay.
okay?
So basically, I'm looking at, so 96 Henry's Road, so that one is a new, that one's a vacant lot. Their assessment value is $153,000. And their area square feet is a little bit, it's a little bit less than 8,000. So the city assessed value for that lot is 1974, which is less than half of what our assessment is, even though it's very close to our building and it's in the same area, it's around the same location. The other one I'm looking at is 443 St. Mary's Road, so that one is the Woodlock bike building. So their building is right built to the border, so their building is 11,120 square feet, same as their land. If we do a general estimated building value with age, then their building would be around $70 per square foot, which give their land only $147,000. So their dollar per square feet value is $13.27. Or right adjacent neighbor is 447 St. Mary's Road. Their the total assessed value is $300,000. Their building is 2,500 square feet. If we do a $70 per square foot building value, based on existing building, then their land would only be at $1,853 per square foot. If we're looking at our other adjacent neighbor at 459 St. Mary's Road, their land is 10,117 square foot with their own curb access, and it's a corner lot too. So if we assume an $80 per square foot building value, then their land is only valued at $171,000, which give their dollar per square feet value is $60.90. So the highest I'm looking at right now is less than $20 per square foot, where our lot is valued at $45.27. So I'm not sure if all that has been considered. It's especially where our lot is kind of in between the two other buildings, so there's a lot of limitations on what we are able to do.
So what do you think the value should be for your property?
I would assume that should be somewhere close to where our neighbors are. I would give it between the $20 to $25 per square foot mark.
And that's your presentation for that one?
Yes, it's the same.
Which might be
for that one.
applicable for the other one?
It's exactly the same, actually.
But we'll deal with this one first. All right, that's your presentation? Okay, I thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Why the two in this one?
Okay, we're just, you know, and we were mindful of the fact this is your first time here. So part of it is, do you have any market evidence of land sales that support a $20 to $25 sale for this parcel of land? Because we can't compare assessments, so it's hard.
Well, we're adjusting our assessment like that, and I understand that, but like we're adjusting the assessment, so why was something assessed lower and then compared to why is our assessed higher? Just want to kind of understand the logistic behind that.
Well, assessments can be wrong. A person's not gonna appeal their assessment if they find that it's too low.
Okay.
And so that's one reason why we don't use assessments and we try to use market information. We don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Linkletter?
I don't have any questions at this
Mr. Rupp?
time.
Yeah, you're $70 and $80 a square foot per building. You got that from your first piece here, did you?
70 to 80.
You suggested that the building value in each of these things you presented about assessments is $70 to $80 a square foot.
So that's based on the size of the building and the year it was built, and then how it was built, the materials.
Now, where'd you get the numbers from then?
The material is based on general construction plan.
On which?
General construction guide.
General construction costs, okay. And the one at land only at 96 St. Mary's. I know we're talking assessments here, but 96 St. Mary's, do you know anything about that property?
So that one now is being built into a 3-story multifamily building, so exactly what we're planning to do.
It is, eh? And
Yeah.
you have this, you took that from the assessor's rolls, of course, 1974 square foot, okay. Find that interesting, but, okay, thank you.
Our reference date for your property is April the 1st, 2016, so
Okay.
we want to know the value of the property as at that date. So I assume that Robinson Shippett represented you for the purchase?
Great.
Okay. And the purchase is post-reference, so, I mean, you have some data here, but like I say, you can't, we can't consider it because it is after the reference date,
Okay.
okay? Mr. Assessor, summation if you want? No? Further word in regard to this property? Okay. We'll go on to the next one that you have, and it is probably very similar. So we'll just take you through the formalities of it. So Mr. Assessor, can you take us through this property and just briefly describe it?
Okay. Okay, so file number 18389, roll number 0800008400, address is 449 St. Mary's Road, roll year 2019, reference date of April 1st, 2016, assessed value 229,000, parcel use is vacant commercial, zoning is C2, and the land area is 5,058 square feet. Our recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $45.27 per square foot. I'll quickly just go over the rest of the pages. Subject properties on page 2. Page 3 has our breakdowns, and also a subject sale history. There was a sale on February 18th, 2002, $109,250. Page 4 has our comparables, same comparables as last brief. And pages 5 and 6 have pictures of our comparables, same comparables as last brief. And that is my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Questions? What you want to ask?
Yes, for the subject sale history, there's a $40,000 difference between the two property. Was that considered at all, considering that both assessment value is the same right now?
What was the question again?
So, for property, for 455 St. Mary's Road, the subject sale history, the sale price is $142,000. Where for 449, it's, the sale price is $109,000. So there is a difference back in 2002.
Okay, but the assessment, we're talking about the assessment, and the assessments are exactly the same at $229,000 for the 455 and 449.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what was the question?
I'm just wondering, was the history considered, or how was that incorporated into that?
Jonathan?
The history of the sale price?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was considered. It's from 2002, so our assessment has changed over the years.
Yeah, well, 2002 minus 2016 is 14 years away from the reference date.
Right.
There's been significant inflationary pressures on land values in 14 years.
No, like, I understand that, I'm just considering, like, there was a difference back in 2002, but there isn't a difference now, so I'm assuming those numbers are not considered, or?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, we're saying like if you looked at even residential homes, some residential homes have doubled in values from 2004 to 2016. So overall, the trend for it being doubled is
No,
very,
I-
very
I-
reasonable.
I
And also
understand that.
based on market evidence, because everything we do is based on market evidence.
I understand that, I'm just saying there was a difference between the two properties in 2002, and there wasn't a difference now.
So, okay, what you're saying is that one sale was 142 in 2002, and well, essentially, it's all, we don't know what the buyers and sellers determined at the time. You got two different buyers, I'm assuming that the person who purchased it in August of 2002 is different than the person who bought it in February of 2002. And maybe even that, so we talked about paired sales analysis here. So if we're doing that, that would be a typical example paired sales analysis that we do, why time adjustments are so important. And there's lots of examples of time adjustments that we do on Pembina Highway, on Regent. There's lots of time adjustments that we do when we look at the valuation process. So we would not consider it, to answer your question, because for one, it's 14 years away from the reference date, and for two, they're probably different buyers and sellers.
Ms. Leclerc, any questions of the assessor?
I have no questions.
Mr. Upke?
No, no questions, thank you.
Your presentation, or just state it for the record?
It's the same one.
Okay. All right. I think either party wants summation at all?
No, thank you.
Summary? No? Okay, well, thank you for coming this morning, and results very soon. Okay. Mr. Story, I think we're gonna have you come forward here in regards to Notre Dame. Okay, yeah, okay. We'll have Mr. Story sworn in.
Sid Story?
And he said they're going to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you. Should you watch them just for a second?
Yes. Matter of fact, if you want, we'll take probably maybe a 5-minute break or so.
Sure.
Okay?
No, it didn't. It was,
Let's call the hearing back to order,
thank you.
and Mr. Story's been sworn in. So we're going to go to 700 Notre Dame. Jonathan, whenever you're ready, you can take us through this property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, file number 18-408, roll number 1304146800. Address is 700 Notre Dame Avenue. Roll year is 2019, reference date April 1st, 2016, assessed value of $94,000. Parcel use is VCOM vacant commercial. Zoning is C2, and the land area is 2,875 square feet. Recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $32.70 per square foot. On page 2, we have a couple pictures of the subject property. The first picture is an overhead, and the second picture is more of a side view. Page 3, I have the zoning there, a little part about what C2 zoning is. We have subject sale history under that. We have a most recent sale as from December the 9th, 2008 of $120,000. Cost valuation at the bottom of page 3 breaks down the valuation of the property. It's just land only. Next page, on page 4, I have my comparables. 4 comparables I use from 155 Sherbrooke, 969 Sherbrooke, 352 Furby, and 221 Stradbrook. We have an average sale price per square foot of $26.12, and a time adjusted sale price per square foot of $40.27. Then on page 5 and 6, I have pictures of my comparables. That is my presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Story, questions of the assessor?
Yes, thank you. Did you attend at the site?
I did not.
Okay. Why not?
I didn't have time to.
And the site itself is self-explanatory. It's a small parcel of land that's used for parking right beside.
So are you aware if there's access and egress to the site?
I did my research online, and I did, we have a couple programs on the computer. We can basically go to the site virtually, and I circled around it. I could see.
Is there access and egress to the site?
From the back lane,
From the back line?
from the back lane.
And what was the property what was the property when the sale happened? Was there a building on the site when the sale happened in 2008?
I'm not too
I
sure.
do believe there's a parcel, a building there at the time.
Yeah, and it burned, it was Roy's Forest and burned down. Correct?
No, it wasn't Roy's Florist right at the corner of Furby there on the creek?
It's McGee.
Yeah, on 710 is Roy's Florist, and that's been there for like, I got my wedding,
Yeah,
photos there.
that's fine. A building
So,
burned down. I
okay.
grew up in the area and it used to be a building and it burned down.
So are you implying
There was a
that Roy's
building there.
Florist is here?
Pardon?
Are you implying that Roy's Florist had moved?
I guessed it was Roy's Forest because that's the only place I remember, but it could be
Yeah,
something different.
710 is
It's okay.
Roy's Florist.
Okay, so, and again, you can tell by going online, it's an irregular piece of property. Correct? Irregular shape.
Yep.
Okay. And you don't know, was that the answer to the sale in 2008, if it included the building? I mean, I'm not sure, or you know?
We believe so.
You believe so, yeah. So we'll ignore that. On page 4, what does the, under land value summary, what does PRI stand for, the type? What does that mean? You see at the top of the page, what does that mean?
Primary.
Primary?
Yes.
What does that mean? Well, primary mean, the land valuation summary type is primary land, what does that mean?
Well, there's no
Just
other.
land only?
Land only, there's no
Okay.
other value attributed to this.
Thank you. And it's quite small, 2,875 square feet. It's 28 feet wide, is that correct?
Yep.
Now, your comparables. 3 of the comparables are fairly substantial pieces of property. One is 20,000 square feet, you're comparable at 155 Sherbrooke. You're comparable at 969 Sherbrooke is 11.7, and Stradbrook is 35,000 square feet. Are those the best comparables you can get to the subgroups, to the subject, which is 2,800 square feet? Are they the best comparables you could find?
As commercial properties, yes.
Okay, and it took you back to 211 and 212. You couldn't find better sales in 211 and 212 for commercial properties?
In well-established neighborhoods that are close to the health science center, it's hard to find small parcels of land that are sold like that for commercial properties. If we wanted to take a lot of vacant residential properties at 3,000 square feet, that would have been quite easily achievable. But we want to be,
let's
we
follow
want to be,
through with
we
that,
we
Mr.
want to
Mayor.
be consistent with
Let
that.
me follow through with that then. The property, a vacant lot,
Yes.
in close proximity on McGee, Beverly, Simcoe, Toronto, are averaging $7.15 a square foot.
Is that in your evidence?
No, I'm just
Right.
asking you, you brought it up, you brought up the residential lots.
What we're saying here, though, this is commercial property, so to answer your question, we are trying to find commercial sales within the West End. Sherbrooke's in the West End. Well, Sherbrooke, Furby, Stradbroke, these are all
Sales are
close
from
into the
211,
area.
Mr. The sales are from 211.
We are doing the best we can. We're not gonna create sales from out of the sky that are not conducive to it.
And you're aware that you have more chance for distortion on a time adjustment if the time adjustment is extraordinarily long, i.e. 8 years, 10 years.
That could be the case, but in our analysis, we do paired sales analysis.
Where, do you have any, have you or anybody from the department ever provided this board or any of the agents with paired sales analysis?
Due to time constraints, no, we do not.
How do we know it exists?
Well, because we're under oath and
Okay.
we
Give me an example.
we swear under oath that we do this information. When we go through our accreditation process, when we complete our AM designation or our AIC designation, what happens is paired sales analysis is a very common approach to doing
So
land
you've had
valuation.
experience, you can think of a property that you've dealt with as paired sale? and-
I could think of 1588 Pembina Highway, I could think of 840 Regent Avenue, I could mention lots.
Okay, thank you. And do you know offhand if these properties, are they still vacant commercial lands, the ones that were vacant in 211, or were they actually developed into commercial enterprises of some sort of residential? Do you know what's happened to them since 211?
I think usually when people purchase vacant land,
Yeah.
they're for other developments. They're not keeping them as vacant
So
parcels
they're
of
not
land.
buying it for the land, they're buying it for the land and the opportunity to develop it maybe into
Of course,
condos.
that's the definition of highest and best use.
And I'm sure in your experience, you've seen where the developer has to pre-sell 65%, so he oftentimes takes an option on the land until the 65 pre-sold. Is that your
And how would
experience?
that be applicable to the subject property?
Well, because I think you're comparing property that have development opportunities with a property that doesn't have any development opportunity.
We're having a subject property that is very close to the health science center, which is used as a parking lot, which is the highest and best use of a parking lot. And well, chances are be continued to be used as a
Excuse me,
parking
hang on.
lot.
This is being used as a parking lot?
Are there not cars parked on this location?
Okay, do you know you need an occupancy permit to run a surface parking lot in the city of Winnipeg?
Well, the bottom line is it's being used for parking.
Okay. Do you know what the ultimate disposition of this property, were they developments? They're all developments now,
What's,
of the comps?
well, of the comps or the areas most closest to the subject property?
Well, you got 4 comps here, 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4. I'm saying, what are they now?
Like we've,
Are
like
they
we've
developers?
stated before, they've been used for areas to be developed for
Okay,
other
so they're probably
purposes.
development funds. Okay, and the only one that's comparable is 352 Furby, 5,800 square feet, that's getting closer to the size, correct?
Yep,
Correct?
yes.
Okay, and what happened to it? What's that property? It's sold in 212, is there something there now? 352 Furby? That's why it helps if you go in, if you're using comparables, if you know something
Can I
about it.
interrupt for 1 second? Mr. Frolick, is this your presentation or is just Jonathan's?
It's Jonathan's.
Okay, okay.
I'm just
So,
trying to help Jonathan.
I know you're, mentoring him.
Yeah, I'm
But
trying to
I'd
help.
sooner ask, if he's gonna get his feet wet, jump in. So, I appreciate the tutoring, but
Yeah, to answer your question, I'm not sure what has become of the property as of now.
Okay, and you prepared the brief,
Yes,
and you believe these to be comparable to the subject,
yes.
right? Yes, okay. Okay, if we, I don't think I'm gonna bother with that. Those are all my questions.
thank you. Ms. Lakeland.
Yeah, so, sorry, you may have stated this, but, your comparables, are they being used as parking lots?
As of when I pulled them, they were vacant from what I saw from the sales. I don't know what they're currently being used as.
Okay. And, Mr. Froelich, I think you said that the subject property is being used as a parking lot, and are you making that statement
Well,
because on page 2 of your brief, there's 2 cars parked there?
yeah, and then we got subsequent pictures here that we have here that shows that like there's 4 cars being used there.
Which page, Ms. Fromm?
No, we have.
But that's not submitted in.
That's not submitted, but
Yeah.
it's another picture that we have of supporting evidence that shows that it's being used as a parking lot.
It's not in your evidence?
It's not in the brief?
No, it's on the brief, but I
Okay.
do have it here for your review.
If you want to look at it, Mr. Story, that's fine.
No, I know the subject.
Well, and what's interesting about that as well is we've counted, there's actually 8 parking spots that are listed that are marked.
What do you mean marked, Mr. Fowler?
That there's painted lines on the concrete.
You're sure of that, Mr. Fowler?
What's that?
Are you sure of that?
Well, just diagonal
How,
lines.
excuse me, here's the point. Yeah, can we put this in evidence? Yeah, let's put it in evidence.
Okay. Mr. Frolick?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah, we'll need, do you have copies for
Yeah, we do.
everybody? Okay. Oh, thank you. You said you have a copy?
No, not yet.
Okay. If you will now. Okay. Now see if you mind. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
we have a reverse angle.
So there's different angles that you could take a look at this, right?
okay, so, sorry, and are you talking about these 4 cars here?
On the bottom, yeah.
Okay.
And to me, it seems that there's clearly lines that are listed there. They're faded, but they're parked in an orderly fashion.
Okay, and do you know for a fact that revenue is being obtained on these lots?
No, we don't know.
You don't know.
We don't
Okay.
know, but the point is, there's abundance of people parking in the neighborhood. There's a sale for this property that existed, so there must be some value of the land. To imply that there's a $1 value for a parcel of land that sold for $120,000 is outrageous. So there is a demand for parking by the Health Science Center. We know that people are paying top dollar for parking spots by the Health Science Center. I'm assuming that the hotel is using this lot for their customers.
Which customers?
Well-
The vendor customers, which is at the far end of, which is far south of this?
Well, is it
Which
not
customers of the hotel?
Is it not a hotel there?
Pardon me?
Are you implying that there's not a hotel beside the
No, the
subject property?
Maryland Hotel is there. Do you know where the vendor is?
Yes, I do know where the vendor is, Mr. Story.
Are they using that parking lot for the vendor?
Why
Sorry.
would they have,
Mr. Story, sorry, I was the
No,
one
they said
asking,
you
I
didn't
was the
comment.
one asking questions, sorry.
Sorry.
Just gonna. So, this is the Maryland Hotel?
yes, it is.
And this is, sorry, I'm trying to get a, this is Notre Dame here,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And this is Cumberland, so you're,
Yeah, it makes a
Yeah.
right turn onto
on
Maryland.
Cumberland, right. Lori, just, and I think this was already brought up, but I'm just gonna ask you about page 4, and I'll ask Mr. Delinsky. Your comparables that you've used, just the land size is just so much bigger than the subject property, and I'm just thinking in terms of when you have a residential brief, you're sort of trying to compare apples to apples.
Yeah, we
This
had,
is sort of,
it was tough to find, like Merrick was saying, commercial properties that were so small, as in the case of the subject. So I did the best I could to find, vacant commercial land in the area that was as small as possible.
okay, because also your sale dates are in 2011. I'm just sort of finding that a bit surprising that there would be nothing more recent, more comparative.
Couldn't find anything.
Okay, that's all my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Upton?
Yes, you arrived at 3270 a square foot. How did you come up with that number? Is that the time adjusted sale price, or what is it from?
That's our assessed value.
Yeah, but how did you come up with 3270?
It's the assessed value divided by the land area.
Oh, so you came up with the assessed value first and then put a land price on it, a square foot there. You came up with $94,000, and that translates to 3270.
Yeah.
Okay, you did it in reverse, okay. And it's 28 foot frontage on the property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, your comparable that you do have that's anywhere close is on Furby. What is the frontage on that one at 3352 Furby? Do you know?
I do not know off.
But if you look at the picture, 352, 30. It's slightly larger than the subject property.
So you don't know what the frontage is?
No, my guess is less than 50.
But it could be, the sale there could be for development purposes?
For
The
which
property
one?
could be for development purposes.
You know, there's a big building right beside it, which is Portage Avenue, and is this, that's Furby. Is that the new U of W building? I
Okay.
believe that's a new U of W building, so realistically, I think it's probably gonna be used as parking.
Is it
moving
parking
forward.
now in your
Yeah.
drawing? Is it used as parking now?
Yeah, on page 6, it still looks like it hasn't been developed yet, because there still seems to be some bushes there.
Okay. So you are acknowledging that the subject property could be only used for parking?
It has limited usage, because even if we look at the similar one that was before us on St. Mary's Road, they had taken 2 of those parcels of land, and they're gonna be building multifamily with them at some point. So the frontage is here, so there's income potential for other uses if they decide to purchase those other 2 lots. But at this size, you know, it's undevelopable. It's, the highest and best use is as to use to supplement the hotel, or to use as individual parking by itself. And there are no mailers, like, Johnny, did they provide us any income and expense
No
mailers?
mailers.
Well, did you send them
Yeah.
one?
What's that?
Did you send them one?
I'm not sure if there was one sent.
Because what you might find is that people won't respond if they're not required to and you don't send them one. Why would they? It's vacant commercial land. They can't use it, they don't use it for parking. There's no revenue generated from it. Can I ask a question?
Well, wait till I finish here.
Oh, I'm sorry. On this handout.
Okay, so you've acknowledged that it really is for parking use. This
Well-
property would basically be used for parking in the future, if not now.
Well, to me, if there's lines on the picture showing me that there's cars parked there, the common conclusion is it would be used for parking.
Well, then why would you pick properties in the area used for parking that are parking lots and do the income approach? You could take properties in the area that are parking lots, or surface areas of parking lots in the area, I'm sure, and determine a income approach for this
Well,
property.
what's interesting is when we did the income approach to value for this property, where's this one that's similar to this? So this is the one beside it, right? Yeah,
Zero.
yeah. And so, yeah. And so, we have it valued as vacant commercial land. But the point is, the applicant's advocating that this property has no value. He says there's a $1 value to it, yet there's two right beside it. There's income-producing properties here that have parking lots on it. So in our eyes, it's not a $1 value. There's a history of this property being purchased for a reason. So a businessman would be spending $120,000 for this property in 2008 if it did not have any sort of perceived value. And I'm quite confident if we asked the owner for this property for $1, he wouldn't give it to us for $1.
But it could have had a building on it at the sale.
It could have had, but
2008, that could have been a building value as well as a land value, the
But-
120,000.
But they determined that the highest and best use for that property was to tear down that building and to use it for parking, to supplement the businesses or to use it as individual parking.
You know when the building was torn down?
What's that?
You know when the building was torn down?
Well, we do not.
Because it could have been purchased and used as a commercial property.
Or it could have been used for a parking lot.
You don't know the answer to that.
Neither do.
Okay, so you backed into your $94,000.
Actually,
You just picked the $94,000.
no, what we did, we looked at all the sales that were similar commercial properties in different areas, and we compared them to the sales data that we had.
So you come up with 3270,
That's
which is same as your number 3, comparable on Verby, 3218. Interest.
Yep.
Okay. And you didn't consider the income approach. Okay. I think that's fine, thank you.
Sid, did you have a question?
Yes, just on the handout, and I'll be fast, I'm sorry, apologize. Marshall, I'm sorry, this is weird. If we look at the top picture, Mr. Merrick,
Yep.
you'll see that used to be, or it still is a City of Winnipeg back lane, correct?
Yes.
And what they did when they did the redevelopment of the hotel, which was
Okay.
in 208 or 212, whichever they, you can see that they allowed them to cap off the back lane to build that used to be the vendor. See this, the small building from the top picture at the bottom here, that was the vendor. But you can see that the back lane is capped off before you get into the site, correct? That's city land, that's city alleyway,
Which one's that, where?
right here. This going into the site, that's a back, it used to be a back lane that ran right through to Maryland. From
Okay.
McGee to Maryland. Then when they allowed them to rebuild the hotel, they capped off, they stopped that. So there's no access through, and that's where the big.
So,
then you-
so
So you see your lines are showing it capped off, correct? Answer my question.
yeah, it stops off because,
Okay.
so are you
And
saying,
there's no access or egress onto Notre Dame, correct?
no, only through the back lane?
Okay. So, and you're aware that you need an occupancy permit even to build a surface parking lot in the city of Winnipeg? And you're aware that they have design criteria that require you have, if not access and egress at the end of it, that you have aisleways.
There's no access or egress, the same access and
So you
egress
can't use this
issues.
as surface parking.
Well, that's interesting because they're quite similar to the two properties to the west of it, and they're both used as surface parking as
But they have
well.
access and egress and they have aisleways. This is this
There's-
is not much wider than this room, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's 30 feet wide, and it's obviously that they're able to
20.
park cars here.
Okay?
Are you
And
denying the
when
fact
you
that
look
they're
at the
using
bottom
it to park?
picture and you see where they're parking, how does the first car leave if these cars are here?
What's that?
Can he get out? Can he get in and out?
Well, obviously, they're able to park cars there, Sid, so,
Well, okay.
so, I didn't transpose these pictures here.
Well, no, I'm trying to,
That's
I'm
what
glad
you're
you found them
implying.
because you can also, you have this magical talent of seeing parking
Well,
lines.
you know
that
what,
don't
well,
exist.
the
Where
thing
are
is,
they?
there's no difference there between the space between the two parking lots that are beside it to the west.
Okay, one other quick question and we'll go on from here. You're aware, I'm sure, that in the city of Winnipeg, there are a great many spur lines, abandoned spur lines, and a great many former rail lines. They're all around us here.
Yeah.
And they're assessed by the city of Winnipeg at $2.22 a square foot. Are you aware of that?
That could be the case, but how does that relate to a parking lot that's being used right
Well,
beside
my
the
next
hotel?
question is, do you know why they're valued at $2.22?
Because they got limited use.
No use, not limited, no use.
Yeah, well, This
Okay.
is not a spur line at $2.25 squares a foot here. It's evident that they have lines on the lot, it has value to the owner. The person bought it for a reason, Mr. Story.
They
People are
bought the
parking
whole,
there
they
for a
bought it in
reason,
conjunction with buying the hotel and redeveloping it.
and using it for parking.
No, they didn't buy it, if they were
No,
using it.
yeah, because I've just
If they
imagined
were
these
going to
cars
use it
over here.
for
Mr.
parking, they would
Story,
be parking.
I have nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you, that's all my questions.
I haven't finished my questions.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Delansky, I'll ask Mr. Delansky. Is there electrical plugs along the wall for parking these vehicles? Do you know offhand?
I do not know.
Don't know, okay. So, would you say the piece of property that's there, it's only 28 feet wide? Okay, so anybody coming in there, it's almost like functional obsolescence for the subject property, would you agree?
I agree, it would be
Okay,
difficult.
because you can only come in one way, you can't exit onto Notre Dame from, unless you drive over the curb or something like that. So it's very limited, eh? So, and that's the present use for this property, is it not?
Yeah,
The parking?
we believe so, yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Frolick, you had mentioned that because the subject is so close, there's no, to the hospital, there's no vacant land sales around or anything like that, eh?
This is what we came up with in regards to it.
Yeah. And as Mr. Story had mentioned, we have sales, the earliest is 2012 and 2011. So nothing applicable to current times.
No.
Mr. Story, we're ready for your presentation.
Yes, thank you. I'll go very quickly. I keep saying that, I'm not very quick. If you look at our brief, this is a front page. This gives you a view looking, that's the building on the left is the Maryland Hotel. The subject property is outlined in red. You'll see it's 2,800, if you go to page 2, it's 2,875 square feet. It is not classified as a parking lot, it does not have plugs, it does not have, to the best of my knowledge, there's no markings on the ground. It's discouraged as a place to park. I parked there on one occasion and they made me move it so somebody could get out. I don't know what the value should be down. I know that rail spur lines, because they don't have much development opportunity, nor does this, I don't tell you, are valued at in the $222 a square foot. Real estate, if you bought a 6,000 or 8,000 square foot lot on any of these streets around there for residential use, it's $750 a square foot. So when you get these numbers, it's hard to imagine it could be that high. Page 4 of the brief shows you the, I wish we had dated this, it shows you the lot, and you'll see where it says New Lodge. New Lodge is a Maryland Hotel rebranded itself, so it's relatively new, so I don't, this picture must be fairly current, but it should be dated at the beginning. But you see it's in red here, and you see where it's capped off at that red car and the red line, and that's where the city back lane ends. Next page is page 5, and again, you can see it, this car's parked differently than Mr. Frolick's cars, but that's now a pharmacy in that end. It's a kind of medical. Next page looks like the same as the last one. So, we know that real estate is valued as what you can generate, what cash you can generate, what opportunities are. Real estate of this nature is landlocked. It doesn't have occupancy permit. It's never been applied for parking. It turned out to be surplus parking, surplus land when the hotel was redesigned and then rebuilt. It's been done a couple of times. I don't know what the amount, we put $1, it's a nominal value, we believe. We don't believe there's any market for it. There are design criteria, you'd have to landscape, how do you take away landscaping on parking lot that might give you, if you did have full parking, it might be 7 or 8 cars, now you have to landscape, how do you do that? You need aisleways, how do you do that? You can't. So I don't believe there's any, I don't even believe you can get an occupancy permit to make it surface parking if they wanted to. I don't think that's the intention. So we know that the railroad spur lines are a couple of bucks, so $2.22 a square foot. I brought some evidence on that stuff, but it's not in my brief, so I won't present it. But it's kind of a given that we know how the city values that. And they're valued that way because they don't have development opportunities, nor does this property. They're at $2.22, I'm suggesting $1, somewhere between $1 and $2.22 a square foot, I believe is a fair market value as to what this property might sell for in the open market, if it would sell at all. I don't think it would sell any higher than a couple of bucks. So I would ask that it be between $2,875 and about $6,000, so $2.22. And that's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Story. Questions of Mr. Story? Donovan?
Yes, Mr. Story, in terms of permitted use,
Yeah.
do you agree that this property could be used for parking?
No.
Have you
Okay,
talked-
you have to have access and egress.
Have
If you
you-
don't have access and egress, you have to have aisles, you can't have either.
Have you talked to the property planning and development department?
No, I'm a tax agent, I haven't go talk to them, I know that, no, I have not talked to them.
Thank you.
So there's no possibilities that the conditional use would allow them to have it as a parking lot?
Well, there's no demand for, there's a lot of parking, Mr. Fowler. You mentioned they're near the Health Sciences Center, and you mentioned they pay the highest, well, they don't. The highest is downtown, $113.50 is parking, so they're $50 a square foot on William Avenue near the hospital.
Parking is
Question is,
$50
could they
a
get-
square
could
foot
they-
by William Avenue at the
Yes,
hospital?
yes, there's $50 square foot lots, you know, are you putting some Charles Colby's orange minutes?
Wow. That is shocking.
In any case, could they get a conditional use? I don't know, I doubt it.
Okay.
They would require landscaping, fences, plugs, and would you do that for 7 or 8 cars? I don't think so. So highest and best use is probably to sit vacant. Maybe it should be a park.
Okay, Mr. Delinsky, you had spoken to someone?
I talked to the property planning and development, and they said it's a permitted use that there can be parking there.
Well, how did you word that question? Did you explain it's 28 feet, you have only one access point? And in fact, you don't even have that, because if the city caps off the back lane, which they're entitled to do, you don't have any access.
They know all the details on the property, and they said yes for
Well,
parking.
how did you describe it if you didn't know the property? You hadn't been there, you just described it to them and they said this. Who was it you spoke to? You won't remember
I
that
don't
either?
remember her name off.
Okay. You really have to work on your evidence a bit. Thank you.
Do you have, oh, speaking of evidence,
Yes.
Okay.
do you have any commercial
Okay.
sales evidence in your brief?
No,
Isn't it our turn to ask questions?
no, because there's no
No,
opportunity
you
here to
said
sell.
evidence, so I'm looking forward to the
Yes.
evidence that you provided.
Yes.
Because I see no commercial sales.
No,
Okay. You spoke of residential sales. Are there any residential sales?
no, but
in your
we
brief?
do quite a number of buildings in that area for the K-Tel group.
Okay.
And they're all 58,000 for 6,000 square feet, which is $7.25. If it were vacant for infill, that's what you pay.
Okay.
And the reason I brought that up is to explain the value in real estate is what you can make from it. So if you're building an infill house, you can sell it for $226 plus land is $300. So that land in that area is worth $7 a square foot. This land, if you're going to be a surface parking lot, you would take somewhere between your 113, and I don't know, on Elgin, right across here, we do lots of properties, lots of commercial, surface parking lots. These aren't generating $100 a square, a month.
They're not beside the Health Science Center.
What's that?
They're not beside the Health Science Center.
Well, yes, but there's lots of parking beside the health science. Do you know, this picture doesn't show it, but the hotel to the beer vendors almost a block away. That's all parking. There's no demand for parking. And
no-
they're not gonna do monthly parking there, I don't believe. But there's parking, this is not the same owner, this is a different owner that owns this
Yeah, we know
surface
that.
parking.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so-
the hotel is a hotel, and it has this chunk that got left over when they did the construction.
So would you park your car underneath a hydro pole on hydro bylines? Because you were
I park my
referencing
car anywhere I
hydro bylines at $2 a square foot.
No, rail.
Spur lines.
All through the city.
Yeah.
The board knows it.
Yeah.
All through the city, there's miles and miles of 20 feet strips
Yeah.
that used to be rail lines that went through the middle of the city. They're all assessed by the department at $2.22 a square foot, because they acknowledge that there's no development opportunity. People will buy them because they're adjacent to their building, and it'll give them some extra access and egress, or it's ancillary to a building.
Okay.
But this isn't ancillary to anything.
I see.
This is just surface. It's based on the development opportunity.
Okay.
You'll hear more from Mr. Mitchell, I'm sure. Because I think he's innocent.
Fair enough.
Okay.
No other questions.
Thanks.
I think we're finished the questions, are we not?
No.
No? Okay, Ms. Linkletter? Ms. Linkletter?
So, Mr. Story, just going back to the city's brief on page 3.
Yeah.
So, on their sale history, this property was purchased in December 2008 for $120,000.
Yes. With a building, I believe. There was a building on it at the time. It wasn't vacant commercial at the time.
So
And it was-
now, with no building, was this previously appealed by you,
No, never.
by the owner? No?
No.
And when were your pictures taken?
Which pictures off in my brief?
In your
Well,
brief?
these are from the, most of them were Google satellite, and they were in preparing the brief, let's say, the last 10 days, 2 weeks. I know the new law, it's fairly current, because the new lodge is a rebranding of it. Used to be called the Maryland Hotel.
Okay.
So they were relatively current.
Okay. So on page 4 of your brief and page 6, the parking lot pictures you have, it looks like there's debris. Is that just a bad photo?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't, to be honest, I didn't think it was paved, it was asphalted, so I've driven on it,
Okay.
but it looks like it is. I don't know what that is.
Okay, because I know there's some dispute about lines. Do you know when your photos were taken?
Well, if you look at the bottom, it says May 5th, 2018 on here, where the lines are and where it's concrete.
That?
On your picture, it says a date, right?
Yeah, up in the top.
Yeah, there's the little compass
Oh, yeah,
on the right-hand side.
yeah, okay.
So,
5/10/218.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Upton?
Yes, the owner of this property, is he also the owner of the hotel?
Yes.
He is, eh?
Yes, Amerjeet Warrior.
Okay, when I look at the pictures, as we're doing just now, it looks like in your pictures, it looks like an unpaved lot.
Like a which?
Unpaved lot.
I thought it was unpaved, but,
It's obviously paved now by the picture.
well, I parked there and I didn't think it was asphalted, but it may be, I can't recall.
So I'm just curious as to why the owner of the hotel and this property would pave it if he's not gonna use it for anything.
Nobody, they haven't paved it. It would, maybe it was like that, I don't believe it's been paved.
Well, the building was removed, part of it was certainly paved.
If the building,
Well, there was a building on this property.
Yes.
When it sold for $120,000.
I believe so, yeah.
Since that point in time, the property has been paved. Or you'd have a foundation, a basement there.
Unless that was parking for that other building, I don't know. I'm not sure. It couldn't have been parking for the.
My other question would be, since it's surplus to the hotel owner's needs, has he tried to sell it to the adjoining property? They could maybe use it for parking?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Yeah,
Because it
they would
looks like
have,
they're
they would
totally
be, they
parked
would
up
perhaps
where
be
they are.
able to. They would have, they would perhaps be able to, the adjoining property owner. I
So it would
don't
have
know if
market
he's tried
value
sell
to
it or
the
not.
adjacent owner. the
Yeah,
adjacent
it would-
property.
they would have value.
They would have.
It's ancillary to their property.
Because it looks like their property is all parked up now. On your property in the pictures.
By the look of the pictures, yeah.
It looks like the parking is full.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're advocating $221 a square foot, what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that it should be between $1 and $2.22, which is what,
222.
similar property with limited opportunity have.
Okay, thank you.
And I have, if you want, I handle 55 Myrtle, and it's $8,000 assessment for 3591 square feet.
Where is that?
220. That's Myrtle in Winnipeg, just across the street. This is by McPhillips Run, Maryland, so it's just west, about 5-6 blocks west of the subject. Remember where Concord Motor Hotel?
It's a parking lot, you say, and it's valued at?
It's a spur line, it's the same thing, it's a long skinny piece, 25 feet wide,
Is that,
and it's assessed at, again, it's assessment, it's assessed at 222. And for many years, the railroads accepted the assessment, and if somebody wanted to buy them, you could buy them for that, for 222. Now they're asking more,
okay.
I bet they think it's like $4 or something.
Okay, thank you.
Summary, either party? Jim?
We're fine.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you so much.
All right, leave it with us, I guess, and results very soon.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming this morning. Mr. Navarro, we'll get you sworn in or affirmed, either one.
Please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro?
Please swear to live and to best present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Zelinski, can you just read the roll number, seeing that it doesn't have a specific address?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number, I'll start out with the file number, it's 18-630. The roll number is 060934567700. Roll year 2019, reference date of April the 1st, 2016. Assessed value of $898,000. Parcel use is vacant commercial. Zoning is C1. Land area is 38,883 square feet. Our recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $23.09 per square foot. On page 2, we have a couple pictures of the subject property. Page 3, just go over that the zoning is C1. This type of zoning is commercial neighborhoods. Description is this district is intended to accommodate small, compact commercial uses within or surrounded by residential areas that are attractive and compatible in scale and character with surrounding residential uses to serve the convenience needs of the surrounding neighborhoods. I don't have any subject sale history. On the next page, on page 4, I have the cost valuation summary. It's just land value, and the land valuation breakdown under that breaks it down to a net rate of $23.09 per square foot. At the bottom of page 4, I have my comparables with an average sale price per square foot of $23.80 and an average time adjusted sale price per square foot of $32.33. On pages 5 and 6, I have pictures of the comparables. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's my brief.
I thank you, sir. Mr. Navarro, questions of the assessor?
Yeah, just one moment. Looking
looking at your first comparable in 2430 Main Street. Now that development is on Main Street, it fronts Main Street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And most of your other ones also front main corridors, correct? Except for the third comparable.
Sorry, what was your question?
There's at least 3 comps that front main comparables, is that correct? Or that front main streets, main corridors?
St. Mary's, yeah.
Okay. Does our subject isn't on a main corridor like that, is it?
It's being developed to be a main corridor. Currently, it's in a newer area, so no.
Did you look at any of the planning aspects of our subject? Did you talk to a planner on this?
No, I did not.
Okay. And what kind of time adjustment did you use on these properties?
I don't know the math behind it, it depended on our modeling department to come up with those numbers for us.
Okay, so it's just model driven. Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Ledbetter, questions?
No questions. Oh, just one. Did you have a chance to visit this
I
property?
did not visit
No.
this.
Mr. Upton?
Yeah, your net rate of 2309, how did you come up with that? From your, obviously from your comparables, I gather. Why 2309? Is it some kind of mathematical calculation, or?
It is model driven, and then if you compare them to some of the other ones right now that we have, like the higher ones that we have is on St. Mary's, which is closer to downtown, which is $44 rent.
Right.
And then the other ones, if we look at time adjusted sale prices, they are a bit further reduced from what it is, right? So Marion, busier street, it's at $32.30. So if you're doing an adjustment off of that, it's a third less than our comparable on Marion Street. And then on St. Mary's, that's 44. And the subject property on number 3, it's just south of Bishop Brandon. So it's actually, if you look at our comparable number 3, and is that not a similar one that the applicant has used as well? So comparable number 3, which is in the southeast quadrant, which is an island, which is near Bishop Brandon and La Jamodier, its time adjusted sale price is $27.24, and ours is a bit less than that at 23. That's a bit more established neighborhood. But then subsequently, there's been a premium for real estate that's taking place in Sage Creek. If you look at the rents that are being derived from a commercial perspective at the Sage Creek Business Center, it's a desirable area. People want to move in there. It's going to be a large residential area. So when we look at our comparables at $23 compared to the ones that we have here, and our most accurate comparables, comparable number 3, we're slightly less than that on the time adjusted variety. So I think we're being pretty consistent.
Yeah, well, you come up with such a precise number, 2309.
Well, it's mathematical. Everything we do is multiple regression analysis, right? Like last week, I was at the open house, and we can't go to over 200,000 residential properties every 2 years. So everything we do is based on model and following IAAO standards.
Okay, so you derived it somehow from the 2724. You worked backwards from the 2724 to arrive at this number.
Well, no, we looked at all sales that had taken place in all areas, and we've come to the analysis that way.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, thanks.
Okay. I have no questions. Mr. Navarro, the floor is yours.
Okay. The property owner here is Qualico Developments, and they're a developer in the area, obviously well known. There's no civic address at this point. Roll number is 06093456700. Land area is 38,883 square feet, zoning C1. And I'll just ask you to flip over to page 3. Again, this is an aerial view. You can see that it's on the corner of Des Ivernant, Edward Turner Drive, and there's a little roundabout there. And this is just slightly west of, slightly east of La Gemaudier. So it's unserviced, irregular shaped vacant land parcel. Again, on the corner of, it says here Bishop Grandin and La Gemaudier, but it's actually, it's now Des Ivernant and Edward Turner Drive. Surrounding uses are predominantly residential, R1, multifamily, RMF. Under the St. Boniface Area Structure Plan, approved secondary bylaw 158/2005, the area subject sits on the area that it sits on is classified as a neighborhood node. The purpose of the node is to provide transit focus and meeting place for surrounding residential uses. Transit supportive uses such as schools and daycares are encouraged in this area. In terms of the highest and best use, again, we're looking at this from the perspective of the St. Boniface Structure Area Plan. So we think the highest and best use is likely an educational or institutional use, such as a school or a daycare. As luck would have it, there is a daycare that is being built on site right now. So, just to explain the neighborhood nodes, so they want a focus on these sites. There was a potential for some type of light commercial use on here, but really in terms of the proper use of this, it was more likely to be something like a park or a school or a daycare, and that's exactly what it began. What is being built at the moment. We turn to page 9. You can see the different commercial and institutional zonings. C1 is commercial neighborhood. It's not a highly intensive use in terms of the type of zoning that's on it. C2 obviously is a little bit more favorable because it allows for much more potential uses. In terms of sales comparison, I've used 5 comparisons here. I'll go through each one of them actually. If you flip to the first one, this is 865 Henderson. It's 21,354 square feet of commercial parcel zone C2. This lot, I believe, is being developed into multi-residential. The next one over is 2430, and I believe we both used this as a comparable. 21,891 square feet, again being developed into multi-residential. (912) Archibald Street is 33,111 square feet, zone C2. This one actually had some issues in terms of the railway corridor, so there were some issues with the new guidelines that came in place. However, at the moment, there is a new development in place, and it is a residential development. The next one over is Index 4, 70 Shady Shores Drive East. This one is 40,857 square feet. Commercial mixed use, and again it was developed into multi-residential. The next one I believe the assessor has also used as a comparison. This is roll 6 06093373 this one is 43,549 square feet, zone C2. The owner also owns adjacent apartment buildings, so the most likely result of this one will probably be multi-residential. I've used a value of $15 per square foot. The overall value is $583,245. The reason that I went that way is because this site, because of the area plan, the St. Boniface structure area plan, this site was more likely to become something like a park, a school, a daycare, as it did, and would likely not have had the same type of demand on it as a site that would have become multi-residential housing. So that is the reason why I've made a downward adjustment, even though my average was 1889 on these comparables. I suggest that $15 a square foot is probably more appropriate for this property. And I'm open to questions.
I thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Yeah, on your comparable one, what is your sale date?
4/26/2016.
Do you agree that's post-reference?
I would say that with almost 100% certainty that this was negotiated before the reference date.
Thank you. What do you feel is your best comparable out of your file?
Obviously, I would go for Archibald, because it had the most restrictions on it, in terms of the zoning restrictions, because of the corridor. And while our subject doesn't have railways near it, it doesn't have those types of restrictions, what the planners envisioned for this was not a gas station or a corner store or something like that. It was likely to always become something like a school, a park, or a daycare center. And that is, again, exactly what it did become. So we don't think that there would have been as much demand for it, because it's not like that they could have gone and built another multi-residential building here. Simply said.
Okay, thank
Is it common to put schools on roundabouts?
I think this is a new approach to planning that they're using, and I think if you go through Sage Creek, it's slightly different. It's a slightly different model than you'll see in previous subdivisions that are scattered throughout the city.
So is the other school that they built in Sage Creek, is that on a roundabout?
Not necessarily. What I'll say is that there are dedicated sites for certain schools, and there are at least 3 dedicated sites for school in Sage Creek.
Okay.
But while I'm saying that that would have been the most likely use of it, I did mention a couple of others, including a daycare.
Okay. Wouldn't your comparable number?
Or it could have been a community center.
The community center?
Yeah.
With the, okay. Okay. Is this the one? Yeah, comparable number 5, would that not be similar to the subject property? In terms of close to being in the southeast quadrant of the city, not on the major thoroughfare?
It is, but as I said before in my presentation, that site is most likely to become, it's actually written in my presentation too, it's most likely to become a residential multifamily
Okay.
apartment.
So you're saying that a variance wouldn't be possible to do residential on this parcel of land?
On the parcel of land,
Yeah.
on the subject.
On the subject property.
I suppose you could try going for a variance, but again, I think that's what the structure area plan is there for, is to kind of guide them as to what they want in these new subdivisions. You can put a variance on any type of property, whether it'll, or apply for a variance on any property.
Okay.
Whether it gets approved is another thing.
Okay. And with your comparable on Archibald, were there any, was that previously a gas station?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that impact the low value?
No, I don't think so. What I think is that people recognize that there was some issues with the corridor itself and having multi-residential housing too close to it. And it did become an issue because they forced them to revise their plans eventually. It was initially rejected, and again, they had to go through an entire process just to get it approved. But as for the gas station, I mean, it was a cleared lot, it was sold, all of those things have been dealt with prior to the sale of it, so.
Mhm. But it would have been remediated and cleaned up for potential residential homes, would it not have
Well,
been?
if you look at remediation of gas stations, you look at the mother companies that own these gas stations, like Shell Corporation, Esso Corporation, Petro Canada. Most of those companies handle the remediation of their gas stations themselves. It's not something that the owner of the gas station themselves would have handled. So, do I think that it would have affected it? I don't. I think all of that was handled before the actual sale.
And are there any contamination issues with the subject property?
Well, if there was, I don't think they would have allowed an apartment to be built on it.
Okay, on the parcel that we're looking at, on our property?
Oh.
On the property?
No, on our property, we're looking at farmland, essentially, or ex-farmland.
Good. No other questions?
Thank you. Ms. Linkletter?
Just one, Mr. Navarro, you mentioned that currently a daycare is being built on this site.
Correct.
So do you know how much the daycare is consuming of the 38,000 square feet?
I believe the entire parcel.
The entire parcel?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, who decides, because you were saying that this was going to be either a school or daycare, something of that nature, who decides that? The developer?
No, I think the developer proposed the daycare because it was the most appropriate use for the site. But I think that there's probably just a lack of demand for daycare, subsidized daycare in the area. It was gonna be built in one of these nodes. It just happened to be this one.
Okay. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Upton?
Yes, you're asking for $15 a square foot?
Yes.
How did you arrive at that number?
Well, I looked at the $18, the $12, and I thought somewhere in the middle would be probably more appropriate. Again, Mr. Frolik pointed at the sale on Archibald. And that would be kind of the extreme on one side, saying that, those corridors really hinder the development potential of a property, even though it was eventually developed. This one didn't have those hindrances, but it also had an area plan that suggested what should go here. So if you were planning to build houses here or a multi-residential apartment, I don't think you would have gotten that approval.
Okay, so you just took those two properties and
Yeah.
sort of took the
Yeah.
mean, but the average between those two properties.
Yeah.
To arrive at $15.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Summary on either party? Nope.
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the last one, which is number 175 Donald Street. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chester.
Okay, file number 18448, roll number 12093347000. Address is 175 Donald Street, roll years 2019, reference of April 1st, 2019. Assessed value of $320,000. The parcel use is vacant commercial. Zoning is multiple use, and the land area is 3,025 square feet. We recommend to Our recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $105.79 per square foot. On page 2, I have a overhead shot of the subject property, and the bottom picture is more of a side angle as it sits there. On page 3, I have an explanation of the M zoning. This type is multiple use sector, and the description is it's intended to encourage the range of uses, sites, activities, and buildings typical to a diverse and vibrant central business district. The build form is also diverse, ranging from high-rise towers at Portage, Maine, to more intimately scaled buildings along Graham Avenue. Urban design review is intended to enhance pedestrian comfort and encourage high-quality built form. On page 4, I don't have any sale history. Below that, there is cost valuation summary of the land value of $320,000. And also a breakdown below that breaks it down to $105.79 per square foot. On page 5, we have our land sale comparables. The average sale price per square foot is $95.93, and then the time adjusted average is $130.49. And on the bottom of page 5, and also page 6 and 7, I have pictures of my comparables. And that is my brief, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I thank you. Questions of the assessor?
Yes. Would you be able to tell me exactly what the frontage is on your properties?
I do not know this. I don't have those numbers.
Okay. Now, you also have 2 parking lots in here. 292 Fourth. Are you aware if this is a market parking lot, as in available to the public for rental on a monthly, daily basis, or hourly?
Is that beside Yoga Publix?
I think it's, you know where the exit is on the underground parkade? Right across the street, there's 2 commercial parking lots there.
Okay.
It's the one that's more on the north. It's an in-park lot, I'll just
Okay.
tell you, it's an in-park lot.
Okay.
Okay, 286 Gary, are you aware whether it's a commercial parking lot?
I'm not aware.
Okay. And 318 Notre Dame, do you know anything about the history of this property?
No, I do not.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Lickletter?
Yeah, just page 2 of your brief, your bottom picture. Is that some sort of, I just wanted some clarification, is that some sort of a structure there, or what is that?
To me, it looks like a tree, and then there's, on the northern portion of it, there's an advertisement.
Billboards,
Oh, is that what that is?
Billboards, yeah. That's what I'm guessing.
Is that the, sorry, is that the subject that you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
It's, so there's grass on there, so there's nothing there. There is a advertisement there.
So to the best of your knowledge, then, this is not used as a parking lot?
It doesn't seem to be.
And is that some sort of a fence at the back, along here, your bottom, right here?
I think.
That looks like it's a continuation of a fence?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So to the best of your knowledge, then, there's no access coming in, like from where the cars are parked, coming around the corner, because that fence is stopping everything?
I don't think that fence is going all the way through though.
No, there's some sort of a little small access,
Yeah.
certainly not. Okay. That's all my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Upton?
Yeah, do you know the frontage of this property? What the frontage is?
I do not have that.
Okay. Let me go up here just a second. So your value of 105.79, that was derived, I guess, from your comparables, wasn't it?
Subject, the frontage is 25 feet.
25 feet?
Yeah,
Okay, but it's limited frontage, yeah,
yeah.
5-foot frontage.
Yes, the assessed value, yeah, I got it from the assessed, the land value that we have, and that's model driven.
Model driven, or well, something to do with the comparables, yeah. Your comparables, you don't give any size of the properties there. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, land size, I'm sorry, you did. Land sale price, okay. Does the, who owns this property? Does the adjacent building own the property?
I am not sure, do you
No.
think? I do not know.
Okay, that's all I have right now, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, the floor is yours.
I would like the rebuttal first.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll point you to page 2. This is for the sale of 318 Notre Dame. At the time of the sale, this property was actually improved. It also involved a transaction between Manitoba Hydro and Calvary Temple. We don't believe that this was actually a market transaction. There's a lot of, again, land exchange between the two parties. And again, this property was also improved upon at the time. The next sale over, 207 Edmonton Street. As you can see there, the frontage is actually 50 feet on this property. Now 50 feet actually affords you the ability to actually put something on there. And it was developed into an affordable housing complex with single mothers coming to Canada. Now, this one also involved a lot of, again, in between 3 levels of government and the organization that actually supplied the land for this development. Now, we're not saying that, you know, again, that this is not a market transaction. This is not like the first one, 318 Notre Dame. That one, we clearly do not think that was a market transaction. But at the very least, this property and the value that it sold for was driven by, again, that development potential. And we don't think our subject has that development potential. This one is 50 feet wide. They were able to get a building in there. We don't think that that's possible for our property. So we don't think that's a great comparison either. The next one over is 286 Gary Street. Now, again, this also involved an interesting transaction between Vinexo Corporation, Center Venture, and they were looking at locations to build or develop a property, and this is what this company, Vinexo Corporation, does, is it takes old properties and it develops them into newer commercial properties. They developed this into the Pint. They did a study, they looked for parcels that would meet their needs, and after an exhaustive study, they came up with this property. Now, they also purchased that parcel of land, which is the non-market parking lot at 286 Gary Street. Now, what we say is, again, this transaction was highly motivated because, again, they were looking for sites that they would be able to develop and have some type of accessory parking in it. it far exceeds the parking value that this type of property would generate on the market. So we know that it's above market. The next one over is 292 4th Street. Now, I did a rough calculation of this based on the city's own approach to parking. Because this is an actual commercial parking lot, it's managed by ImPark. The methodology that the city uses is quite familiar should be for most of us. It's got 20 stalls. The rate that the city uses downtown is 103.5, and they use a 5% cap rate. It came out with a $496,800 as a commercial value. Now, what this tells me is that I think that the assessors, or the model's time adjustment, I won't blame the assessor, I'll blame the model on this. The model's time adjustment far exceeds what this would have actually accomplished in the marketplace. Following in the appendix, we have all of the literature on this. So the first one pertains to 318 Notre Dame, and the article is called "The Sneaky Parking Lot Plot" between Hydro and again in this Calvary Temple. The next one over is pertaining to 207 Edmonton. And this is basically a Manitoba government news release that talks about the investment. And again, anytime that government, this was 3 levels of government, gets involved in something like this, you have to wonder whether any of it is actually market. The next one over pertains to the pub. And again, this talks about Vinexo Corporation and their study to find the right type of property that would suit their needs. And they did. It worked for them because of this parking, but they had to pay more for this parking than you would in the marketplace. The last one actually talks about the 2018 decision on 292 4th Street. So the board decided the value of that one was actually $430,000. And again, it speaks to my assumption that I think the time adjustment on that sale is a little bit too aggressive. Actually, not little, it's too aggressive. That is my rebuttal evidence.
Mr. Sisters, questions?
Should we not go through his presentation first?
Okay.
Because
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Navarro?
Okay. So again, this is 175 Donald Street. Land area is 3025, multiple use sector. Subject property is 25 feet wide, not much frontage. It does have backlane access. It doesn't have access to Donald Street at the moment. Possible, however, again, with the multiple use sector and the type of guidelines that you have for creating parking, you would need an occupancy permit, you would need a development permit, you would need to adhere to the planning guidelines, which involve proper lighting, proper landscaping, proper fencing. All of those things would be an expense to a potential investor. So while you could value this property as a parking lot, you would have to take into consideration the cost of actually turning this thing into a parking lot. Now, in terms of the highest and best use, I exhausted myself in terms of finding a potential use for this property. I did talk to the planner, the principal planner for the area. His name is Curtis Kowalski. And what he indicated is that you would have to have a very inventive use for actually getting a building on here because of the tight the type size of it. While they don't encourage the proliferation of parking, he says parking would fit if you adhered to those guidelines. So in my opinion, the highest and best use of that property was, or is, parking. It would allow for about 7 stalls of parking. Now, I didn't value it on parking simply because you have to take into consideration the cost of actually converting this thing into a parking lot. And as the assessor also ran into some issues, some similar issues, there's not a lot of small lot sales. When you get into the 5,000, 6,000 square feet neighborhood, it's tight. When you're in 3,000 or below, there's not a lot that you can actually put on a property like this. So I have some sales here, I can go through them. I've put a picture on each one. So 50 Gary Street, again, it's a much larger property. It's 13,398 square feet. It's used as a parking lot. It's in the downtown living sector, which is still in the downtown, slightly different area in terms of the multiple use versus the character sector versus the downtown living sector. And you have to understand that these areas, these new zoning categories allow for multiple uses within them. That one itself is valued at $73.52 a square foot. Now, you also have to take into account that property, because of the size of it, has potential for an investor. It's gonna grow in terms of, increasing fees over the years, but it's also a good size, so it will produce a good income stream at that size. The next one over is Smith Street. And this one is between Smith Street and Broadway. It's about 18,000 square feet. Access is through a laneway. Zoning is multiple use, and that one is valued at $76.08. That's time adjusted. The next one over is Hargrave Street on page 9. And this one again is 18,000 square feet. Access through the laneway. Zoning is multiple use. Again, much better income potential for a type of property like this. Did I not include that one? I may not have included that one actually. Hargrave. Sorry. The next one over is Notre Dame Avenue. This one is 21,000 square feet. This one is beside the one that was exchanged between Manitoba Housing and Calvary Temple. It was sold as a parking lot. It was originally a parking lot, and time adjusted value of 42.08. This one is in the multiple use sector as well. The last one is Alexander Avenue. Alexander Avenue is in the downtown, or the character sector, still within the downtown. It's 13,882 square feet. Now, this is used as accessory parking for an apartment building. Now, obviously you can see here that demand is not very high, so it's sold for less, as one would think in this area. So, in terms of average, I've taken a snapshot of, high demand areas, low demand areas. These are larger parking, these are larger sites, obviously, because, again, smaller sites are hard to come by. I came up with an average of 5113. I don't think I'm at 51 or 76 or 73. It wouldn't be in that area. Again, because of the restrictions on this property in terms of the frontage, the cost to redevelop it, the fact that it would take a miracle to put a building on this thing and get it approved. I came up with a value of $35 per square foot, or $105,875. Now, if I were to value this property as a parking lot, I probably would have put a value on it about $150,000. But again, I didn't value it as a parking lot simply because then I have to take into consideration the cost of actually developing this into a parking lot. So I went with the straight land value. I think $35 per square foot is fair. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Yes, thank you. I noticed at least three of your comparables, 50 Gary, Notre Dame, and 339 Alexander, they're outside of the shed district. Don't you agree, to have a good comparable, you'd want to stay in the same shed area?
Our subject is not in the shed. No.
It's just on the verge of it, is
It's
it not?
on the fringe of the said shed, but it's outside of the shed.
It's 1 block away from City Place.
It's outside of the shed.
Okay.
I checked this.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, if you are in the shed, you have an advantage. But because this site is only 25 feet wide, it kind of kiboshes that. If you had something that was 50 feet of frontage, I think you would have a much greater opportunity to actually develop this into something, as 207 Edmonton shows. You have 50 feet of frontage, you can actually put a building on it. At 25 feet, under 30 feet, there's really not much that you can do. I would challenge anyone to show me any building in the downtown that is 25 feet wide, unless it's a house. There are still a few houses left in the downtown, and they are far and few between. They're probably over 100 years old and don't have much value to them.
I think there's some new developments by where my mom lives on Vaughan and Ellis. There's some new residential homes that are being built that are very tight, 25-foot narrow.
Very common
frames
in a
on it.
place like Toronto where I was working previously.
Yeah.
You see 25-foot development for
Yeah.
residential, definitely. But for downtown Winnipeg,
Yeah, but I think vividly like that, I think things are changing though, right? And so we are outside the box, like, things have been changing and people have been finding uses for other areas. Any other questions? No. I got a question for you because we have 2 properties that are very similar that are nowhere near the MTS Center, nowhere near the convention center, nowhere near downtown. And so your comparables have shown here, you're asking for, what's your dollar value per square foot? $35. Do you have any examples of $35 a square foot for downtown sales?
well, what I took is Notre Dame and Alexander and kind of went in between that, but I actually used the income potential of the property as a guideline too. So as I mentioned, if I was looking at this property as a parking lot, I would have put a value of about $150,000 because you can actually fit 7 parking stalls on this property based on the guidelines that the city sets down regarding parking. But $150,000 would not be fair in my opinion because again, you're talking about the income stream of a parking lot, a functioning parking lot. We're talking about a lot that hasn't been developed yet, so you would have to take that into consideration.
I understand that, but looking at that, you don't have any sales that support the $35.
And again, your sales don't, in my opinion, represent the value of the property because
Okay.
most of them have been, in fact, all of them were development driven. There was one sale, which is a parking lot, an actual market parking lot. That's, managed by InPark. But that one, I clearly went into the rebuttal in my evidence that I think you guys greatly overestimated the adjustment on that
Okay.
property.
So let's talk about one of the sales that you just didn't include, 286 Gary, which is used as by the pint, right? Would the person have the same desire for a parking lot at 286 Gary as compared to 339 Alexander? Because you're using 339 Alexander at $12 a square foot, which is nowhere close to the subject property.
Again, we're talking about a difference between non-market parking and market parking, okay? So Alexander would be non-market parking. There is no renting, you can't rent it on an hourly, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis. You can't rent 286 in the same instance, you can't rent it on a monthly, daily basis. But one
You
is,
can't, why couldn't you?
well, it's parking that belongs to the Pint. That's their customer parking. Okay, it's not open for, it's like an office building in the downtown that has its own parking lot. It's for the office tenants.
Are there any requirements for businesses to provide off-site parking for an establishment like the Pint?
In the downtown, I don't think so, but I think that's probably what motivated the decision to actually purchase that lot, is that it gave them that opportunity to bring in people from the suburbs and have them use the facilities there. Not many properties have that, but at the same time, because this also involves center venture and exchanges of land between this and there was also a hotel here that was chopped down and is due to be redeveloped. You have to wonder whether any of this is actually market driven.
Okay.
Again, with the one on 207 Edmonton Street, we know that there's multiple parties involved in this. So is it a straight, was it exposed to market? Or was there typical motivation? Was there advertising? Were there second and third parties involved?
Why would a knowledgeable buyer like the Pint, which has locations all across Western Canada, pay more than market price for a parking lot?
Why would they pay more for
Well, yeah, because obviously there are other probably potential options that are out there. They wanted something in close proximity,
Well,
and if that's the
I
price that
think
they
it's,
pay.
I think it's the motivation that you have to look at. But also, let's not forget, what's very clear here is that that's a larger property there.
Yeah.
It's got 50 feet of frontage.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying, it's nowhere near the $12 a square foot that you're advocating for.
No, and I'm not advocating for $12 a square foot
Well,
either.
but you're using that as one of your comparables to drive down your average,
Well,
are you not?
even
Because,
even if you're suggesting I'm doing that, we can look at this from the perspective of the income approach, okay? As I said, I would have placed a value of $150,000 on this property based on the income approach. You have to take into account the cost of actually developing that property into a parking lot. So at $150,000 per square, $150,000 divided by 3,000 square feet, you're looking at about $50 a square foot, okay? So I'm taking away about $15 a square foot to develop that property. Is it unreasonable? I don't think it's unreasonable.
what is the address of this is our comparable here, because we both have hydro building comparables, I believe. So your comparable 4 at $42 a square foot. Is it similar size to our comparable number 3?
You're talking about 318 versus the...
Yeah, so 318, we have 21,108 a square foot
Okay.
at $96.
So again, I think you...
And so, I just want to explain that to me.
Sure. I think I explained it in my presentation.
Okay, I missed that,
When
I'm
it
sorry.
sold, 318 sold as improved, okay? There were buildings on it.
But they knew that they were going to be using that.
Doesn't matter, you're still got buildings on it. You're gonna sell it for more. The other one sold as a straight parking lot, probably more reflective of a parking lot value.
But if the end use is the same, they wanted to pay to be in that location.
They wanted to pay in that location, definitely, but again, you have a much larger parking lot there today that has been improved, that has proper fencing, proper lighting, proper paving. There is also a huge expense incurred in terms of that, developing that into a parking lot. That being said.
So then the actual value should be
other-
actually higher than
in-
$96 if we're factoring all their expenses.
In order to make this work.
Let's get back
Okay.
to our questions and answers and never mind general discussion.
Okay. I just find it interesting as an observation that we have two parcels of land that are identical, but we should ignore our data and accept his data for what it is.
Again, you're ignoring the fact that this was an exchange between Manitoba Hydro and Calvary Temple. Calvary Temple gives up this portion of land, Hydro buys them this portion of land. So, again, is that market? And you also have to take into account that there were buildings on this property, and you also have to take into account that it's more than 50 feet wide. You could develop whatever in this property.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't be using either one of our sales for this evaluation, because as you're saying, there's a lot of shady transactions, a lot of different parties involved, you know, and because it's nowhere near close to the MTS Center or the Convention Center, you know.
I'll let the panel make that decision.
Okay, no other questions?
Ms. Linklater?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Upton?
Hey, just to readdress this, well, first of all, is the adjacent building owned by the same owner?
No.
It's not, eh?
There's a parking lot beside it, there's the building right there, there's no common ownership anywhere there.
So this strip of 125 feet is owned by a totally independent owner of the...
Correct, they were the owner of the house that was previously there, that was knocked down, I think, around 2015. They are, I think their name is, actually Canadian Chamois Limited or something like that. So they owned the property for quite a few years, and it got to the point that it wasn't something that they could sustain in terms of the property itself, so it was demolished, unfortunately.
Have they listed this property for sale?
No, it hasn't been listed. And again, that kind of speaks to the odd type of property that it is. And again, at 25 feet of frontage, there's not much that you can do with this type of property.
Let me address your question back to the assessor. At 25 square feet and the shape of this property, what do you see as the highest and best use of it? As a parking lot?
I think they're using it for speculation. They're holding on to it for potential use to be sold at another time. So
Or
they're
what
using
kind
it
of
for,
use could it have?
I think that for the potential for either one of the owners on either side of them to purchase them, or another development that will take place, you know. The True North Square is like close to the area. I think they're holding it for speculation purposes. Because it's an asset, and they're trying to minimize their tax liability right now. That's what their motivation is.
But highest and best use now, you didn't again apply the income approach to this as a parking lot.
We can't apply the income approach to it because they're not parking on it. There's a tree on it. The only income that they're generating is the billboard income, if I'm assuming, or I don't even know if that's the property to the north of it.
So the potential use is only by the adjacent buildings having some need for it in the future.
For speculation, like, you could look at situations where they built across the street from the MTS Center when they built the hotel and the condo complex. You know, those were a lot of old sort of buildings there, but people wanted to be in that area, and you had a motivated buyer.
Were they 25 square feet?
Well, some of them were quite small. There were small businesses that ended up being bought out and amalgamated where they were end of their life. And so people buy it for speculation, people buy it for a variety of reasons. It still doesn't take away from the fact that in most circumstances, the value of land goes down in central business districts all across North America or the world.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you readdress, Mr.
Sure.
Navarro? Mr. Navarro, did this property come under, did you bring this property before us? Like last go around?
175 Donald?
Yeah.
No, they're a new client.
So, do you know what the previous assessment was when the house was owned?
Oh, I don't know. I can't imagine it would have been high. Again, it was over 100 years old, dilapidated, not doing too well. I mean, they had to knock it down essentially. It wasn't,
And you say they knocked it down in 2015?
yes,
Do you know what the costs were associated with that?
no idea, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, summation if you want? No? Mr. Navarro?
Just a little one. 50 feet of frontage versus 25 feet of frontage. Makes a lot of sense. You can't do much on 25 feet.
All right, I think you have results very soon. I think we conclude our hearing, so thank you, gentlemen.